So straight back to work this week. Tell me about Sunday and how you must have had time for it to sink in now, and you've obviously had a couple of days to thaw out as well, because it's pretty wet
Yeah.
and cold there for the runners. How are you feeling a couple of days or so after the run? Are you still kind of pinching yourself, or what's your thoughts now?
I mean, it's really surreal, really, because obviously going into the event, I was the slowest seeded runner, and I had my own expectations, and my coach and I had kind of discussed what my aims would be and kind of where I would hope to sit in the pack. And in terms of the time I actually ran, it was about right for what we anticipated. Potentially, even if it hadn't been such horrible weather, I might have been able to go a little quicker, but the expectation was that if I did that, then I would still just be kind of under the radar, get the job done. Whereas actually, it's surreal to end up kind of in the position I did, running that time with obviously me and Natasha kind of head to head at the end. So
yeah, I mean, for people watching the race, it was certainly a surprise to see you leading as the lead Briton. I think last year we had Jess Piasecki, Charlotte Purdue, Steph Twell, Lily Partridge, all running super fast times. Steph Davis as well. No offense, but if people had been told that you'd be leading as the top Brit in London this year, most people would have been really surprised. Were you surprised during the race when you were leading as top Brit, or?
Yeah, because really as well, I knew that going into it that the back pacing group would be that 2:29:30 time, which was going to be a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah.
On Sunday, so I was always expecting to kind of, well, it was my plan to go with them rather than just be isolated the whole race, but kind of ease back and forward as it felt comfortable. So it was really strange as I kind of just continued doing what I was doing to kind of end up working my way through to where I was. It was definitely unexpected.
And when you were the lead Brit, were you fully aware that you were the top Brit in the race, or were you not too sure at that stage? Or?
Yeah, in the first half of the race, I didn't actually realise really who was around me and who I was running with. It was only when we could hear the commentary for about a minute every lap, and it was only when I could hear them commentating on I think Steph Twell took her jacket off, or someone took their jacket off, and I realised, oh, they're next to me. They're who I'm running with. It was only I didn't really realise where I was in the race. And yeah, I kind of expected as I did move through that I would probably get overtaken pretty quickly again. So it was strange.
What were your thoughts when Natasha came past you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably where my kind of lack of marathon racing was showed, because as she came past, I was almost kind of conceded that she'd had the better race, and it wasn't until maybe the last kilometre that I thought, actually, I'm feeling pretty good. I could pick up again and actually race her to this finish. Obviously, she planned it perfectly, and I couldn't quite catch her at the end. But I definitely wasn't expecting to be the position I was at the end.
Did you feel really good throughout the race? Was it one of those days where everything clicked and you felt good, during the first half and from then onwards, or did you have any rough patches? I mean, I think it's unusual for a marathon runner to go through the whole 26 miles without having at least one or two dodgy patches at some stage.
Yeah, so I think I did about 10k feeling great. I then I'm not sure how much of it, I don't know if anyone would have seen this or not, but I kind of made the decision to drop back off the pacing group I was in, because it did feel a little fast at the time. So sat back until about halfway, and then I just started to feel pretty good again. But I didn't look at my watch the whole time, so I wasn't really focusing on picking up or anything particular, more just focusing on each mile at a time. So yeah, I felt really pretty good until about 22 miles in, and then those last four, the cold was just it was almost I was almost shutting down because of the cold more so than the usual lactic or anything like that. So it was definitely a different experience to other races I've done.
Yeah, I think I mean lots of the other runners really struggled. I think Steph Twell started with a jacket on, and she didn't in fact take it off the whole race.
Yeah, yeah.
She dropped when she dropped out in the end, feeling pretty rough. She still had the jacket on. Lynn Partridge, I think, pulled out with cramps. She had cramps in her hamstrings, probably brought on by the cold, I guess.
Yeah, it was my hamstrings in those last 4 miles that the cold really did get to them.
Yeah, but you managed to battle it through, and you must have been delighted with your time, big PB, and I mean it doesn't seem that long ago you were running in London with the masses, running outside 3 hours, and you've just annihilated that kind of time that you were doing, and you're really up there with the elites now. It must be superb.
Yeah, I mean, that 3:01 I did that's horrible memories, because that was the year it was really warm, really hot that day. So I think I'd done a 2:54 maybe prior to that, but yeah, that was a day where I went in thinking, oh, I'm going to go for a big PB today, and completely just paced it terribly for the weather. And I'm really happy that lessons learned from ones like that, and I've been able to move on since then.
Yeah. I mean that London aside, outside 3 hours. If we go back to your teenage years as well,
yeah,
you weren't really an athletics high flyer.
No,
without being too rude. I mean, I was looking at your Power of 10 profile with all your past performances, and I think you were coming outside top 100 at the English schools, cross country. Even when you went to Birmingham Uni.
I did, yeah. I was doing a sandwich degree with my work, so I was only there for half of the year. But I did race and train with Birmingham when I was able to.
Okay, because you were outside the top 100 at the Bucks cross country championship.
Yeah.
Some results you were
Brighton, I think.
You were kind of down in the 160s or so in the inter-counties. I mean, I'm guessing you probably had a talent there under the surface, but you probably weren't training too seriously at the time.
Yeah, so it's always been something I've been passionate about as a sport from a young age. But I mean, I don't come from a super sporty family or anything, and so I guess for me, the kind of once or twice a week going down the track doing a session was already seemed like quite a lot, really, and that was just what I did, and I just thought, these other girls are just super talented, and I am where I am, and I really did. I mean, the whole reason I took up the marathon was because I was on the borderline of quitting, because I had my full-time job and it was quite tough hours, and running wasn't really going anywhere, and my thoughts were, oh, this will just be something I do for fun now. But I decided, I had a few friends or people I knew that were doing pretty well in the marathon or in racing with their full-time work, so I thought, you know what, if I enter a marathon, I've got to train for it. It's one last opportunity to kind of see whether I can get any better, and if not, then I'll just stick to the park runs and recreational running. So I was really pleased that I made that decision, really.
That's how you got into the marathon. Did you and I bet you're certainly training more than just Tuesday, Thursdays. Right.
Yeah.
I guess it's escalated somewhat since then. Did you I mean, when I saw some of your older results as well, I guessed that maybe you played netball a lot or hockey, and maybe just did those performances off doing those sports. But did you do any other sports like that when you were a teenager? Not really.
No, not really. I mean, obviously at school, I was quite sporty at school, and at uni we had a local netball league, like that kind of thing, which I was involved in, but really not really anything else at all. Just gradually started running more and more times a week, and trying harder in training, and just learning about what was needed in training. So getting that threshold running in, and organising my weeks just so it's more quality training, and building it up over the years.
It sounds like you've probably had a real latent talent for endurance, like lots of lots of slow twitch fibers and bags of stamina, but perhaps never really realised it until recently, and it's obviously come out more with the training that you've been doing. The training has allowed it to surface.
Yeah, I mean, I always hated the track. I did track and cross country, but track very reluctantly. But even then, I would always pick whatever was the longest distance, because I felt like I would be able to run the same pace for the longer thing than the shorter thing, but not much quicker. So yeah, I've always, I think, really in my younger years, I didn't quite tap into what my ability could be, because it was all very short. But after I turned 17, and I entered a couple of half marathons locally just for fun, and I had just enough of the talent there to get the times I would need to get into like the championship start, for example. Yeah. And that really gave me the leg up to actually start thinking about it seriously.
Okay. I noticed as well, you jumped into things like triple jump. You did triple jump at Southern League level. That's the kind of event that most middle and long distance runners really avoid. But you you did it. I guess just to get some points for the club.
Yeah, I just did whatever was needed on the day to get the points in. I still maintain. I'm pretty sure I've run and I've won 3 steeplechase events, and I've never jumped a steeplechase barrier. Just sit on them and.
Oh really? So, you just kind of put your foot on the top, or even end up sitting on them.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what you need to do to get the last few points for the club sometimes. So. Yeah.
Well, they are quite tough, the steeplechase barriers, to be fair, especially the water jump. I always think the water jump's particularly intimidating if you're not used
Terrifying.
to it. Yeah. You managed to win those races though.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even. There was possibly maybe 3 or 4 people in them, all just probably doing the same thing as me, getting it for the points. But yeah, it's certainly not my forte.
So when did it kind of get serious for you then in the marathon? Was there a point? Was there a particular race you did, or a certain point in the last 2 or 3 years where you thought, I could make a decent fist of this now, and ultimately do the kind of performance that you did on Sunday? Was there a point where you realised this?
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of marathons I did, I really, I was just doing, again, just still going down a Tuesday and a Thursday, but adding in that long run on the weekend and getting little bits of advice from the people that I was training with. But I think I had a series of marathons where I was running within about a minute of each other every time and not really improving. And so I decided, but I felt like I knew from my training, I knew that there was more there, but I didn't know how to tap into it really. So so down at Reading, I've got a coach, there's a coach, Rob McKim, who had trained other marathon runners. He trained Anna Boniface, who was first in the championship start on a marathon a few years ago.
Johnny Davies as well.
Yeah, Johnny Davies. He was really helpful, to kind of give me an insight into the kind of training I needed to be doing and how to structure it. And then after about a year with him, I moved to being coached by Nick Anderson, who was just really helpful in the same capacity and just helped me get that big 10-minute PB last year, which is
a super experienced marathon coach, isn't he? I mean, he's coached loads of runners that have had lots of success, and I would say he's a real guy to go to if you want to get the most out of your potential in the marathon, especially.
Yeah, so I met Nick at it was an England Athletics marathon camp. So they do these weekends away for people looking to try and move kind of from the 250 level down more towards the 230 level. So that's where I met Nick, and then started training with him down in Winchester for about a year, just over a year now. So, okay. Yeah.
Are you in Reading then? Do you live in Reading?
Yeah, I live in Reading. Generally train in Reading, mostly on my own, or my husband, if I can drag him out, comes out with me. But on a Tuesday, I'll train in Winchester with Nick.
Is your husband a decent runner?
Yeah. So he used to, he was the classic, like to play football, but tore his cruciate ligament.
Oh no.
Had had to give up that, and so had like cycling and running as his rehab. So but now, yeah, he's a great person to have as a training partner.
Sounds like he's in the room with you and you're being diplomatic there.
He's in the room next door, so I just he doesn't hear me.
He joins you for quite a few of your easier and steady runs, does he?
Yeah, he'll do a lot of my easy runs, and he comes out on the bike if I've got like a marathon session where I need bottles, or I'm practicing laps, like obviously for London I needed to do. So he'll come and pace me on a bike, which is really useful.
I've done the park run in Reading before. I think summer last year, and it was quite nice. It was down by the water. What's Reading like though generally for putting in the kind of miles that you put in now, long runs and stuff like that? Do you have good training routes and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty well located because obviously it's a town centre, but it's only 5 or 6 miles or so, and you can get out into some pretty nice like rolling hills and countryside. So I've got my key kind of 10, 15, 20 mile big loops that I can do. And then obviously I go down to Winchester as well, and there's some great loops there. So I'm definitely blessed for options here.
And do you feel there's more to come now? I mean, you seem like you're a relative rookie in the marathon still. And your upwards curve has been fairly steep. You've been bringing your times down. I think you had a particularly good run in Frankfurt. Was it?
2:37 in Frankfurt.
About 12 months ago, and now you've brought your time down further. Where do you think you can go from? I mean, I know you've only just run the marathon on Sunday.
Yeah.
Your legs are still recovering, but you must be thinking towards the future a little bit as well, and what you can do and where your next marathon might be and stuff like that. So what do you think you can potentially get down to?
Yeah, I mean, the weekend gave me quite a lot of confidence because obviously, even though in those closing miles, I did drop off fairly significantly. I think partly the cold was a factor, but also like in terms of how I feel the next day and in my recovery, I do feel like there's more to give there. And perhaps if I could get into a race where it was pacing that Olympic qualifying time, I think that with another 6 months or a year, I can definitely kind of work to stick on that pace for the full marathon. So that's the aim, really.
I think there's a bit of a question mark at the moment over where and what the trial will be next spring. There's talk about there being a British Olympic marathon trial, maybe in the springtime, March, April. But obviously the coronavirus has thrown everything up into the air and it's all quite uncertain. But I'm guessing if or when that became that started to happen, it was publicised, then your name would be down on the list to give it a crack.
Yes, I mean, it certainly would be an ideal kind of race for me. I really enjoyed the closed loop in terms of I train a lot on loops, so that worked really well for me. So if it was a similar type of event, that would certainly be something I'd be looking to do. But obviously, we don't know what that will look like yet or when.
I'm just thinking as well. You work with numbers the whole time, and I imagine you spend a lot of your days with your nose behind your laptop looking at Excel spreadsheets and things like that. But on Sunday, you said you didn't. Did you not look at your watch, or you weren't really aware of the splits too much? You just kind of ran by feel.
No, I didn't look at my watch at all. But because it was laps, I was doing it in laps of 3, so it was focus on a lap focus on kind of where I was in the pack, a lap where I took my carb drink, a lap where I took on a gel, and then back to the beginning again. And so that's kind of the way I got through it, and it just helped me refocus kind of every I guess 6 or 7K.
It's probably quite useful to break it down into bits like that mentally as well, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit like the old Paula Radcliffe story of counting to 200 or whatever she did during when she was running. It kind of takes your mind off the pain of the marathon. So that's kind of how you got through it. But when it came to the actual splits and stuff like that, you were largely just running by feel. Did you not take note of things like say going through 10K or certainly the half marathon? You must have been aware of that split, surely.
Yeah, so I knew what my kind of half aim was, and that's why I did actually back off a little bit between 10k and a half, because I knew I was above the target pace and it was pretty early on still. But after the halfway, I pretty much just went on feel, possibly a little bit too quick in the early stages of the second half, which is why the end of the race was pretty tough. But I'd spoken to my coach, and because I was expecting to kind of be right at the back, it was always just focus on what's comfortable and could you continue at this pace for the rest of the race. And so it was more by feel than by numbers.
Yeah.
On the day.
What did Nick say after the race?
He was he was really pleased. Obviously, like I said, I kind of had in my head 2:32, 2:33 as an aim. So obviously he was really pleased that we managed to execute that, and was looking at my splits. He was pretty pleased with how it went, and could see that it was just that last little stage that we need to work on, really. But I think he was given quite a lot of confidence that there's somewhere we can go in the next year.
You talk about somewhere to go as well. Are you kind of at the limit of your training, or do you think there's more you can add? Are you at the stage where you're still able to add more mileage, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my mileage is reasonably high, but there's probably more I can go there. I'd say as well, there's probably a bit more quality to be gained in terms of when I train, if I can manage it a little bit more with my work, because the last 6 months to a year my work's like been pretty busy and the hours have been quite long. So to find a bit more balance there, I think there's definitely room for improvement with the quality of training.
So you certainly didn't have the whole summer off on furlough leave like a lot of people. You
No.
were having to work your way through the summer, and as you say, you work pretty long hours. Is it kind of standard hours, Monday to Friday, sort of quite long days, or do you do a fair bit in the evenings as well and bits at weekends?
Yeah, I mean, it's been my goal for the last 7 years to never work a weekend, and so far I've managed to maintain that. So, but yeah, I probably over the last 6 months probably starting work somewhere between 8 and 9, and then finishing somewhere between 7 and 9 in the evening. Obviously, completely varies based on the day, but
do you bookend to that day with a run in the morning and at night, or do you run in the middle of the day when it's light?
Yeah, it varies. So if most of the time I have 2 in the day, but I will work are pretty good with me being flexible, that I might do one of those kind of mid-afternoon and then work later, or I'll do them before and after work. So every day is a different day, really. And then I really mark out Tuesdays as a day where I finish at 5 and go down to Winchester and have like a really solid evening of training with my coach.
That's the big hard session that you do there.
Yeah. So that's really important to me, to make sure that day is always quality.
Yeah. I would imagine that's a session with a fairly big group as well, is it? And sort of standard stuff like kilometre reps or mile reps or whatever.
Yeah, so that's the kind of VO2 to threshold work. Unfortunately, we haven't been on the track at all this year because of obviously social distancing. The track athletes have the track and we've been on a field, but we've had good numbers and got some really good fast sessions in over the summer.
Oh, okay. So you did the performance that you did on Sunday without even stepping on a track for months?
Yeah, the last time I was on a track was I went to Portugal for 10 days of training on about the 5th of March. And that was the last time I was on a track.
Oh, okay. It's obviously not done you any harm. So your hard sessions have basically been largely grass sessions throughout the summer period. Pretty
much, yeah. And then obviously my marathon, threshold work has all been on the road. But yeah, pretty much grass has been pretty key.
Some runners, depending on where they lived as well, struggled a lot during the lockdown to actually get out and train. And did you have many problems, or do you find it? Do you live near the countryside there? Did you find it fairly easy to get out and keep doing the miles?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed actually is my local, like down the river where that park run is, and the nature reserves and things were actually a lot busier than usual because everyone wants to get out for their one walk a day or whatever. So actually, I ended up actually going a bit further afield to try and get slightly quieter runs in, but I think it was great that everyone was out and about and exercising, so I'm not going to complain about that. But I'm fortunate with where I am that I've got lots of options.
And you say you fit your runs in around your work. If your husband does a bit of training with you, do you have to fit it around his work as well? Does it all have to be quite well coordinated, or if he's not around, you just go anyway?
Yeah, so he's a hairdresser actually, and he works from home. So it's quite useful that I can just tell him, don't book anyone in at this time until you can come with me. But yeah, I mean, I do a lot of it on my own. But I think that was really played to my advantage maybe on a race like Sunday, where it is quite isolated. You have to be in your own head and focus on the race. So yeah, I like training on my own, and it's not been a problem.
Was the whole experience a little surreal as well, with obviously lack of crowds and being in the kind of bio bubble, but also being surrounded by the world record holder Bridget Kosgei, and yeah. I don't know if you bumped into Eliud Kipchoge, for example, while you were wandering around the hotel and stuff. Was that all a bit surreal for an athlete who was doing triple jump at Southern League level?
Yeah,
not too long ago.
I'd have to say, yeah, it was pretty intimidating, to be honest, because I'd really had to kind of push for my place to be there in the first place. My coach and I obviously had the confidence that I could run the time I did, but we had to persuade everyone else that I could too. So yeah, it was definitely intimidating being there, and a little bit nerve-wracking when you're in the lunch queue kind of with the world record bookended by world record holders. But it was a great experience, and it was good to do the race and execute it reasonably well, and kind of feel like that's where I can be, and the next one hopefully I'll have the confidence kind of around the hotel to know that I'm supposed to be there,
that you belong there. I know Dan Nash, before the race, he kind of slightly cheekily kind of talked his way into the race, because he wasn't originally invited into the fields, but he got himself into the race. I hadn't thought of this, but were you a little bit like that then? Did you have to try and barter a bit with your coach to get in?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always had it in mind that there would be hopefully a marathon in October I could do, because there have been some others on at the weekend. For example, there was one at Dorney Lake and one in Chichester, I think. So I always had it in my mind that I was training for one. So I was just emailing saying, this is the shape I think I'm in. If there's a space available, I feel like I could compete. So yeah, so I was very grateful to be given that opportunity, really.
Yeah. Oh well, after your latest PB, I shouldn't imagine you'll have too much trouble getting into future races. But as you say, it must have been quite an uncertain period in the sort of middle of the summer, in particular, not knowing whether you'd get to race in the autumn at all or where it might be, and it must have been pretty unsettling and uncertain. But you obviously kept ploughing away with your training, waiting for the opportunity to present itself, and it did in the end, and then you took it.
Yeah, I mean, it was particularly difficult having obviously missed the spring marathons being cancelled. I think it's easy to cope with one where you miss out because you've banked some good training, but it's mentally tricky to do 2 whole build-ups, not quite knowing if there'll be anything at the end of it. But we'd always planned that if there wasn't a race, that it would just be I'd do part of a build-up and then maybe go into some speed work or something. So I always knew that what I was doing was going to have some benefit, and I'm just pleased that I managed to get the opportunity sooner rather than later.